Hi, everybody. I'm Dave.
And I'm John.
And this is Coffee and Capes, a podcast about two of our favorite things, drinking coffee and talking about geek culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the coffee, all the geek culture. C2E2's this week.
C2E2 is this week.
It's pretty exciting, pretty awesome. It's just a small comic book thing that happens in Chicago annually.
I don't know how small it is. I mean, I suppose everything's small compared to Comic-Con in San Diego.
I hear it's probably like 20, 30 people will be there tops.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. Well, it occurs to me that, I guess you don't have to drink coffee and while you're talking about geek culture, and you don't have to talk about geek culture while you're drinking coffee, but why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I was just going to say that just sounds boring. It doesn't sound complete. It's like
right.
And if you're drinking coffee and you're not talking about geek culture, you could be drinking coffee and reading comic books.
True.
And just enjoying geek culture in general. I think there's nothing better than a little bit of coffee in the morning, some quiet time, your favorite comic book. If only there was a place you could get both things sent to you together.
If only. Now, if we were to create such a place, what do you think it would be called and where would I find it?
Oh, I think we just stay with the name of the podcast. We just call it Coffee and Capes. And I think you'd find
Brilliant.
It. Right? So good. I think you'd find it online, right? We'd probably have like a coffeeandcapes.com website that you could also get to by going into your URL and typing comics.coffee, where you would find amazing coffee and awesome comic books. Sometimes you can get them together, like the newly evolved monthly single pack subscription, which is a bag of coffee and a comic book sent to you every month for your enjoyment. Or you could enjoy the new super box, which is a handful of comics and a bag of coffee sent either as a gift for yourself or for a friend, or you could do it as a subscription and save 15% every month.
What?
I don't know. It's insane. But those things are live. We finally launched those things. Well, we launched the Coffee and Cape site a while ago, but the evolution of the subscription offerings and the ability to buy them as one-offs. You don't have to subscribe. You can just buy it once as a one-off and enjoy it that way. And we made some adjustments to the shipping because shipping was a little high, and we wanted to find a way to lower that down because you shouldn't have to pay a ton of shipping to enjoy the things that you love. So we worked hard and found a way to reduce.
Nobody likes to pay for shipping.
No, but if you're curious what some of those boxes might look like, what they might entail, you could follow us on Instagram at coffee_N_capes, Facebook, Twitter. We actually have a TikTok channel, I realized, but just no content in it.
We do? This is news to me.
I know, right? I think I signed us up for one a long time ago and then realized I don't get it. So I'm just going to leave it alone.
That sounds about right.
And if you want to send us an email, guys, you can shoot us an email at supers, SUPERS, just the way it sounds, at coffeeandcapes.com with any questions, thoughts, requests. And if you don't mind, leave us a review on the podcast. We'd love to see reviews.
We would.
Yeah. If it's a 1-star review, maybe send that to us in an email and tell us what we can do better instead of like hitting the little 1-star button.
I like that plan.
Right? Yeah. But we would love to see some reviews. I don't think we've ever actually gotten any.
I don't think we've ever asked for them either.
No, I don't think we have either. Maybe it was out of fear that.
Well, or just to be different. I mean, everybody's like, oh, get on our podcast, subscribe, and
get
us 5 stars. I mean, everybody does
right? They want people to rate their podcast so that more people listen to it. We've always just kind of done this for our own enjoyment,
right?
And which it still is, right? It's still kind of our own enjoyment. It just turns out people listen to it.
Yay! Thank you, people.
Yeah, the 10 people who listen to it. Thanks for listening. Yeah, guys. So leave us a thing, a review thing.
A review thing. Yeah. Yes. That's what we're calling this segment from now on. The review thing.
The review thing. Yes.
Excellent. And you can find us on YouTube as well, and Spotify and all the different podcast
Spotify,
places.
Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts. So yeah, you'd find us all over the place. We exist in the digital space, just like Max Headroom.
Oh man,
That was a good one, right?
That's throwback.
Apparently they're rebooting it.
No.
Yep.
Stop it.
Sincerely.
Just stop, people.
They're also rebooting.
What even
Roadhouse.
is there to reboot?
They're rebooting Roadhouse.
That's
with Jake Gyllenhaal in the Patrick Swayze role.
Why? Just why?
I don't know. Now, let's talk about this for a moment. Because I like Jake Gyllenhaal. He's done some really good stuff. He was great as Mysterio. I really enjoyed him as Mysterio in Spider-Man. So he's done some stuff. Highly underrated movie of his was Bubble Boy. Absolutely hilarious. Hilarious.
Right up there with Zodiac, man.
Right up there with Zodiac. But as much as I like him, like, did we not learn our lesson from the remake of Point Break? You just don't remake Patrick Swayze movies, man.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
Don't get involved in land wars in Asia. Don't get involved in fantasy football with Tommy Pham, and don't remake Patrick Swayze movies. These are the constants in the universe.
Right? It's a national treasure.
Yeah.
Come on. Quit messing with Bodie.
Okay. John, what's our coffee today?
Glad you asked, Dave. Our coffee today is Respawn. Respawn is fair trade, medium roast, single origin. It has notes of brown sugar, cashew, milk, chocolate, a little hint of orange. This is actually Rachel's favorite.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, she loves Respawn because it's so smooth and has, coffee. Some of us enjoy that little bitter bite.
Yeah. Right,
of our coffee. That really doesn't exist in Respawn, but it's still super flavorful. So according to Rachel, like, if she could just have that all day long, she would drink that all day long.
Wow.
So yeah, even though we don't play favorites, which we do, yeah. Rachel enjoys Respawn, and a number of people actually have talked about how they enjoy how smooth that one is, and I enjoy it. It's a great coffee. It really, really is delicious coffee. So Respawn, everybody, for all those late night Call of Duty online gaming Minecraft-y things.
Excellent.
Better than Mountain Dew.
I just ordered some yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah.
Better than Mountain Dew, kids.
Oh my gosh, for sure. All of our coffees are better than Mountain Dew. And you can also have them in fun mugs.
Yeah. Shameless mug plug.
For sure.
All right.
Excellent.
Fan fiction.
Yeah.
I really don't have anything because the shirt.
Let's do that for fan fiction.
Yeah, that was kind of the plan, the thought, right, with the shirt. For those of you that aren't creepy and watching us on YouTube.
It's not creepy to watch us on YouTube. Don't tell our YouTube watchers that it's creepy to watch us. It might be boring to watch us, but it's not creepy.
I think it's creepy because why would you want to look at our faces? It just seems like I don't know. Maybe you're angry at yourself and you're like, I'm going to punish myself today and watch Dave and John. I have to look at them. But the t-shirt, it's really not creepy, guys. We enjoy it. If you watch us on YouTube, we hope you enjoy it. But as you can see, this is my red shirt from Star Trek. It says, I might not make it. But that's not the point. One of our most beloved and really pioneering
absolutely
characters in the original Star Trek series and subsequently movies, and a pioneer for, man, I mean, really, if you think about the time frame, not only women, but Black people, and holy cow, Black women.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Passed away this week. We lost Uhura.
Yep. Nichelle Nichols,
Yeah.
The other day. It's a big loss for the. Well, I was going to say for the geek culture community, but really for the entertainment industry at large.
I think for forwarding equality across all mediums, I would say that was a big loss.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen
Right.
some tributes from apparently I read a story just the other day that Nichelle was going to leave Star Trek after the first season to pursue like a Broadway thing.
Oh wow.
And she was at I forget where she was, but she was told like somebody wants to talk to you, and it was no joke Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
who said to her essentially, please don't leave. This is me completely paraphrasing, but please
Sure,
don't
yeah.
leave. It's so important. You're like, your show is literally the only one we will allow our girls to watch
Mhm.
because, and well, I mean, I didn't say what, but Nichelle was perhaps the first Black woman on TV that wasn't in a quote traditional Black role. She wasn't a maid. She wasn't
Right. Yeah.
She wasn't a nanny. She wasn't a
Yep.
mammy. Like she was an equal part of that bridge. And
Yeah.
it was
She was an
really important.
officer
Right.
on that bridge, right?
Yeah.
She was the communications officer. She
Yeah.
was an integral part of that crew. She was part of the command structure. And yeah, to your point, right? At that time, traditional, like quote unquote, traditional Black roles in entertainment were incredibly demeaning and racist.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Which was a reflection of how they'd been treated and viewed for decades.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately,
Centuries, actually, but yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, in some areas, still can be viewed in such a way. And it just shows how far we got to go. But I'm not climbing on that soapbox today.
Yeah.
But, Nichelle Nichols, it's so important, not only to geek culture and just Star Trek in general and science fiction and everything else and the arts, but also to, just setting an incredible example at a time that people didn't have. Like it was
representation matters. We hear it all the time. I think it was Whoopi Goldberg that also wrote a tribute about how seeing Lieutenant Uhura on her TV was inspirational. It was the first time she'd seen somebody that looked like her.
Right.
Don't quote me on that. I'm paraphrasing what I read, but yeah.
Right. And you think about that, and this goes back to what we talked about back in our Star Trek episode, right? Really how groundbreaking Star Trek was at the time, because you had George Takei as an Asian male and the command structure, and granted we didn't know it at the time, but a gay Asian man on TV. You had aliens from all over that were equals in everything. It really was
the equality, the pluralistic society as ideal. Those were not subtle points of Star Trek.
No, not at all. Like that was
clearly the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And you looked at, you brought up a long time ago, like the idea of the Klingon and how that didn't really sit right. But if you look back at like what the Klingon represented, like that was an enclosed social structure of only Klingons who only believed in their way and their society, and aliens from the outside were not welcome. They were viewed as weaker. They were viewed as lower, right? So think about that in terms of society. Really, Star Trek was saying, we include everybody and we're going to fight the system that denies people equality.
Right. And now extend the analogy. Who in real life, who's playing the role of the Klingons?
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I'm pretty sure that I've read that Nichelle Nichols and William Shatner were the first interracial kiss on TV.
Yes. Yep. They were the first interracial kiss on TV. Yep. And then William Shatner just kissed everything.
He took that idea and
green,
truly
blue,
did.
didn't matter. He
Right.
was like, hey. So yeah,
Man, rest in power, Nichelle Nichols,
rest
and
in power,
thank you
Nichelle Nichols. Yeah.
for all that you did for young Dave and young John and all and so many others. You will be missed.
I will be remiss if I don't point out also that she was beautiful.
Oh, for sure.
I remember seeing her on, on TV and being like, whoa, like she's so pretty,
Yeah.
She's an absolutely stunning woman. And from a personality standpoint, if you ever go back and listen to her talk about that role after she opted to stay in, and all the people that she met that had conversations with her and thanked her for, being such a pioneer, it really touched her, from what I've read. So just a beautiful soul, and she will be missed.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I said young Dave and John, but not just young Dave and John. She had a big impact on us our whole lives, because that story has been part of our lives for basically our entire existence.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
Yeah. So today, as you can tell, if you're one of the creepy few, according to John, that are watching this on YouTube,
you guys really aren't creepy.
You're not creepy. We love you.
You're watchers. Ooh, we're gonna call them watchers. The You Ought To clan.
Yes. Oh, there you go. That's a deep dive. It's time to talk about Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things season 4. Right? We're not going through all 4 seasons.
Oh goodness, no. But before we get into it, our standard Coffee and Capes disclaimer.
Oh yeah.
Here there be spoilers.
Yeah, guys.
So if you have not finished watching season 4 and you do not want it spoiled, please pause now.
Yeah.
And go watch it and come back when you're done. Yeah, exactly.
And we're back. All right.
So after this, spoiler, you have been warned. Spoilers will happen.
Yes. On that note, man, let's jump into I want to jump into one thing that I thought about as we were, after we talked about we were going to discuss this. And that is that the episodes were incredibly long, right? We had part 1 and part 4. Yes. None of them felt long. Like, to me, none of them felt too long. They all felt like they just did a really nice job of grabbing my attention and holding it throughout the entirety of the season, especially part 2, where I thought a 2.5-hour Stranger Things episode was going to be way too much. Yeah. And I was locked into that TV and heartbroken by the time it was done. Right. And we'll dive into that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the last part there. Heartbroken by the end. I'm not so sure I agree that longer was better.
I'm not saying longer was better. I'm just saying the length didn't turn me off like I thought it would. I didn't get bored.
Yeah, I guess I can't quite go there. I think.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, then this is over.
Thank you very much, everybody. See you next time.
Good night.
I felt while watching it, I didn't think, oh gosh, this is so long. It felt more like, and I said this a couple of times to my kids as we were watching it together. Stranger Things has been so successful, it appears that the what's her name, Duffer brothers,
yeah,
have been told, here you go, do whatever you want.
Yeah, oh for sure.
And that's fine, but it just felt like they kind of bypassed any editing process. Like, so here's the thing: if you there's an adage, right, that it's harder to create or write or to create something that's shorter than it is to create something that's longer, in the sense of if it's going to be shorter, you have to be more precise about your editing and about what you're going to include and what you're not. And if you're told, well, you have all the time in the world, you can just include every little bit of thing that comes to mind.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how it felt to me a bit. Like I thought they got a little pondering at points.
So I can see what you're talking about, and it is something that they taught in when I went to film school, right? And specifically, I went for screenplay writing, and they talk about you have to shorten things down and get to a point to hold the attention. And if you prattle on and you go on for too long, like I am prone to do in explaining things, right? You'll lose your audience, right? You run the potential of losing your audience. And I can see, kind of looking at things where that could potentially come into play with season 4, because the episodes are longer, and it does seem like they were just kind of handed the keys to the kingdom, and they just ran with it. But at the same time, if I'm looking at it from a storytelling perspective, there was a lot to unpack in that season. And I'd have to go back and watch it again, because I'm not sure that you could unpack everything as successfully as they did without losing some of the continuity that they are so good at carrying throughout the season.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. You could very well be right. Like I could have just been so engrossed and enjoying it so much, especially with the nostalgia aspect, right?
Well, and if you're engrossed and enjoying it, then that's the point.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Then they've done their job. I'm like,
ooh, right.
Yeah. Especially with first of all, was it your son that brought up, was it really like this in the 80s?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So for everybody out there asking yourself that question, were the 80s really like that? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And what you guys got to see was an interesting part of the 80s, right? Where there was like this kind of like interesting cultural like crossover in schools, where you had like new wave poppy, like popular-ish kids. You had outcasts who, and I don't really know if they would be considered nerds, just more like social outcasts. I feel like that would be more appropriate, that were into Dungeons and Dragons and listen to like different music, right? Like metal music, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And man, that we both talked about this, but that what was it called? The satanic scare?
The satanic panic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, satanic panic. Thank you. Satanic panic. That was a legit thing.
That was a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that was an interesting, I was glad that they went there.
Yeah, me too. I think that was to me, that was one of the strongest points of the entire season. Mm-hmm. Now, it's kind of it exists as a bit of a subplot, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But I agree. I was really appreciative that they addressed that, and addressed it from the standpoint of, you parents are ridiculous and crazy and stupid, and this really isn't, there's nothing satanic about this. I mean, that's a whole, that's right in my wheelhouse. I could go on about that for a long time, and I won't, but yeah, like I really appreciated the way they weaved that into the storyline, because that really was a part of what happened in the 80s, and people lost their ever-loving minds about freaking Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah, I had, and we've talked about this before, right? I had all the original TSR books, and they were worn and tattered, and you had to find them somewhere. And man, I will never forget, like my mom was one of those people that had kind of started to buy into this satanic panic thing, right? And Dungeons and Dragons is not okay, and those kinds of things. And eventually she got over it, right? She realized it was just kind of fantasy and what it was. But there were so many parents that thought, if your kids were playing Dungeons and Dragons, you were just painting pentagrams and sacrificing goats and babies and everything else, and on your way to just being a terrible human being. and that just wasn't what it was. And I appreciate that they also took it to the mass hysteria aspect and really demonstrated what is still true today, everybody, that people latch on to a reason or an excuse for something that fits into the nice little box that they have created and will run with it, and how easily that fire spreads.
Right. Yeah, we got a good
Right.
piece of that, especially in that parent meeting, where all it takes is
That's
a
exactly what
couple
I'm
of
talking about.
parents to be like, "Oh, we're gonna go get them," and then the mob mentality takes over, and everybody's like, "Oh
Pitchforks
yeah,
and
let's go get them."
torches.
Yeah, it's very much the scapegoat principle. We're gonna there's a problem in our community. I mean, it's classic Rene Girard scapegoating principle. Like there's a problem in the community, and so you identify a person in this case or a group that comes to identify as that problem to be the I don't know, to be the avatar for that problem, if you will, and then you drive them out of town or literally kill them, and then your problems are solved, and the tension goes away, and your community is whole again. Is the way humanity works, it turns out.
Yep.
And the show did a great job of making use of that reality and that truth about human beings in a way that really added for me, legitimate terror to the story.
Yeah, agreed. And then you had the high school kid, and I don't remember his name, right? That went out, got a gun, and was gonna hunt down the real hero of this story, Eddie Munson.
Yes.
And shoot him, right?
Right.
And that, like, I really liked how throughout the season the kid, and I don't remember his name.
I know, and I can't find it either. But
Yeah,
the basketball player, the basketball star, right?
The basketball star. But how as things went on, he became more manic, and they even, like, if you notice, like, his hair started to be a little bit more messed up, and he started to have paler skin, and, like, he really, like, evolved physically too as he went down that path of just kind of maniacal, like, conviction that he was gonna kill Eddie, and he was gonna kill everybody in the Hellfire Club, which I thought, by the way, the name of that was a nice nod to the X-Men.
Oh,
so good.
Yeah. Yeah. In some ways, to me, the basketball kid was more terrifying than Vecna.
Yeah, I would agree. He was,
his threat was more present.
Yes, and I don't know. It's so Vecna. There was a lot that had to happen. Vecna went after people, those kinds of things, but he was very consistent and steady in his terrorizing and murdering, right? This kid became unhinged.
Right.
And when somebody becomes unhinged in their righteous anger, right, what they view as righteous anger, what they view as kind of that, I'm doing the right thing and I have right on my side, and you can't tell me anything different, and I'm not gonna listen, and I'm just gonna see this through to the end. That's terrifying.
Right. Exactly.
Right. That is a horrifying moment. We're talking entire, like, genocide has happened as a result of those people. You think back and you go, all the way back to, like, the Crusades and before. But so
and he embodied all of that. There's the word. He embodied all of that, including the religious fervor that can engender some of that. So I thought that piece was brilliantly done.
Millie Bobby Brown, phenomenal job as 11, as always. But I will say, my favorite, if I had to pick, like, who my favorite people to see on screen were, number one, well, let's go in reverse order. So Steve and what's the kid's name?
One
I
that
can't
plays
remember.
Steve, or the other character?
The
Steve
other
and Robin,
character.
Steve and
No, his buddy.
oh, Steve and Dustin.
Dustin, thank you. I don't know why I was just like drawing a blank. So Steve and Dustin, that pairing, I loved seeing them on screen.
They're so great. I love the evolution of Steve's character throughout the seasons.
Yes.
That he started off
the
as the jerky bully,
yeah, he was a
preppy
dick.
kid. Yeah, he was complete dick. And
Yeah.
now he's the protector.
Yep.
And
of everybody, right?
Yes.
He's willing to sacrifice anything to be able to keep everybody safe.
But yes, right. And it doesn't strike me as a machismo or whatever way. Like he wants to be the protector because he genuinely cares about them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he feels like, hey, he's got some strength and he's got some skills and he can do that. But it comes out of a place of caring and love rather than I'm going to be the hero kind of thing. Ego thing, yeah. I think.
Yeah, I agree. And the interaction between Steve and Dustin is great throughout the
fabulous. Show. Yeah.
And there's just that like big brother, little brother thing that happens there just so naturally. And, it's just a great interaction. And it creates moments of levity and serious moments. It gives both of them an opportunity to be the hero at times.
Yeah.
In surprising ways. So those guys were just fantastic.
Totally agree.
The next on my list, I love watching Winona Ryder and David Harbour.
Yeah, agreed. They're kind of obviously they're the adult center of the show. But I like how they too have evolved from the will they or won't they? Are they getting together? Are they going to admit to each other that they like each other? That like
come on, Sam and Diane.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That no, they just straight up love each other and care about each other, and it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and that storyline, I will say, so when Winona Ryder and I don't remember the guy's name that she
Murray?
Enlists to,
Murray?
Yeah, Murray. Whoever plays Murray, by the way, is hilarious.
He's awesome.
When he actually turned out to be a black belt on the plane,
that was hilarious.
Kicked that guy's ass.
Brett Gelman is his name.
Brett Gelman. Way to go, Brett Gelman.
Yeah.
You are like when he was like talking to Winona Ryder, he's like, if you can get me free, I'm a black belt. And she's like, have you really found anybody? He's like, well, just kids. And you're like, right. Oh God. This guy. And then he gets free and he fights, Yuri, the backstabbing pilot, and he just beats his ass. And it was phenomenal to watch because it was funny, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, Murray, get him.
Yeah. No, that's great. That storyline, everything about that whole storyline was completely ridiculous, and yet I was here for it. I loved it.
Oh yeah, but it's so. I thought I was going to be annoyed. That's one of the points of the show where I thought I was going to be annoyed, where they went to rescue him, go through, like doing the rescue, and then it, turns into a thing, and it fails. And I was like, are we going to do this annoying thing the whole time? Like, because there's nothing. If you want to annoy me in a film,
and I do,
failed rescues repeatedly. Over and over and over and over again, nothing bugs the shit out of me more.
Okay.
It's like,
I did not know that. I learned something about you today.
You can fail a rescue and you can botch it like once and then reset and go after it and everything else. But if it becomes like a pattern of like 5 different times, right, then you're like, come on, guys. Like, you've lost your originality to it. Like, you're just eating up space and time to try and hit a mark, right? So I thought maybe that's what we were going to see, but it was so pivotal that they stayed in Russia.
Right.
And what could have been a very small, compact little world that didn't have hardly anything to do with the rest of what was going on turned out to be pivotal.
Yes. Yeah. They
and
yeah
very
they wove it
connected.
in really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant writing on that.
Okay. So Winona Ryder and
David Harbour.
Harbour. Yeah. So who's next
Yeah.
on your list?
Number one, hands down, Eddie Munson.
He was great.
That guy, who's the actor that played Eddie Munson? I can't remember his name. He has and I follow him on, well, I watch anything he pops up in on Instagram because.
Give me a second. I'll find it.
Did you know he actually knows how to play Master of Puppets, by the way?
I've seen some videos about that he learned how to play it, and then he was hanging out with Metallica.
Metallica, right? Wow.
Joseph Quinn.
Joseph Quinn. There you go. I want to talk about an evolution of a character. Well, maybe he evolved from what he considered himself to be, which was a runner and a coward, right? Somebody who wasn't going to actually fight. He was just more like he would rather run and wasn't going to do that, into, man, probably one of the most influential and pivotal heroes in the entire show, and made for the most heartbreaking moment, I think, in all of Stranger Things. Doesn't matter what season, for me anyway, when he died. That because it like the dying words that he had for Dustin of like, I didn't run.
Yeah.
Did you see me? Like, I didn't run. And man, just like that, I was like, it still like makes the hair stand up on my arms, and he went from the head of the Hellfire Club, the D&D guy, like 5th year senior in high school, kind of the town loser. That's what everybody viewed him as, except for those within the Hellfire Club. And we got to see early on when was it Janine or Janet? Damn it, Janet. The girl that came to him to buy weed off of him because she was having those horrible nightmares that we didn't know were Vecna yet. And this just really kind, sweet, like, I know what it's like to be an outcast and I'm not going to judge you for this. Right. This is like a safe space. That was the first moment you went, oh, okay. I like,
there might be more to this guy.
Right. And then, as things went on, he just became such a pivotal hero. Yeah.
And he's a good physical actor. Like at least in the way it was shot, it appears he's a pretty big guy, or at least bigger than the other. And he has that sort of Michael Richards Kramer-esque thing where he can use the lankiness and the physicality to bring out the humor and to really add expression to what his character is doing.
I thought he was a phenomenal actor. I thought he was able to reach across the emotional spectrum very, very easily and very well, from being kind of off standoffish and going, man, I don't really care, to terrified to
I really am the father figure of this, or the older brother figure of this group, and these kids matter to me, and I matter to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a piece of what helped him evolve and transform as a character, was that he realized that those other guys cared about him just as he was.
Yeah.
Gee, if only there were a lesson there.
If only. Man.
Yeah.
But it's just such a great character. And it sucked that we lost him. I was pretty angry that they killed him off. I thought he was amazing. That Master of Puppets scene where he is playing guitar in the Upside Down.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most epic moments in history on TV that I've ever seen. Just in terms of just like, this is so cool. right?
It's for sure the most metal scene in the history of TV.
Most metal scene of all time. Yeah. Dustin nails it with that, right? Most metal scene ever. Watching Dustin's heartbreak.
Oh gosh.
When Eddie dies.
Yeah.
And then the end.
Where he gets to have that moment
with Eddie's uncle.
Yeah.
Right. When Eddie's uncle keeps putting the picture up, right?
Yeah.
Of Eddie, and Dustin's finally like, I have to tell you something about your nephew.
Yeah.
And he sits down and has the conversation. Man, like I'm getting a little choked up talking about it. But it was just such a great scene where he gets to tell him like he was a hero.
Yep.
He saved lives. Man, that was awesome.
Yeah. And probably better that so here's one time they did edit something. Like you would expect the uncle to be like, what in the heck are you talking about? But he didn't. He just accepted it and said, that's great. And he's like, he was so moved to hear that about Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important. It's an important lesson for people to remember that like you can't judge a book by its cover. Right? You never know what kind of person like lies underneath the surface of what you're seeing, good or bad, right? Because at the beginning you think, oh, look, the star basketball guy, and he's accepting I can't remember the kid's name.
Lucas,
thank you. Like he's accepting Lucas onto the team and welcoming him and making him part of everything, and he seems to be a good guy and all this stuff. But Jason, the right circumstance.
Jason is the basketball player kid's character's name.
Okay, Jason. But it, he seems to be this good guy and accepting and everything else, right? But then he goes off the deep end and becomes this murderous rage machine.
Yeah, right.
Who's willing to take down anybody. And Eddie at the beginning seems like I said, like the loser, dropout, drug dealing,
And he was.
And he was.
Seem like he was, but that wasn't all he was.
Right. He was something else entirely under.
Yeah. And I would say for the one thing, I guess, to mitigate Jason would be, as we've talked about about other products, grief. He's so grief stricken. Yeah. That he needs an avenue for that. And he finds literally the most destructive one.
Right. And
it doesn't excuse it, doesn't make it okay, but like from a character standpoint, you can kind of at least understand why.
Yeah. And that's the most common response to grief for most people, right? In a loss like that.
Yeah.
Right. Not necessarily if we're talking about, the natural passing of someone that's, while they're still
like 89 years old and was a pioneer in TV and film.
Right. But when you have someone who's taken unexpectedly in a horrific and violent way, right, that is the most common path that grief will take people, is into that rage. Right. And whether somebody acts on it or not, that's neither here nor there, but it exists.
Well, it's kind of here or there, but it's better not to act on it.
I mean,
but I know what you mean. Like it's a common, yes, for sure. Anger or rage is a common reaction to grief, and especially that kind of grief.
Yeah. So I mean, those were, but everybody did such a great job. I think one of the most interesting underlying emotional moments that was never said out loud was how clear it was that Will was in love with Mike.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it became more and more apparent as things went on, and that Will's older brother finally catches on. And granted, they never said it, it was never said out loud in that like simple entirety.
Yeah.
Right. But you could see it, like the way Will looked at Mike and the conversation that he had with him about, telling somebody that you love them and then watching them slip away and all this stuff. Like sometimes you don't say anything, and, Will's brother turning around and realizing Will is referring to Mike.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
He's having that moment.
And I was glad they finally kind of gave Will something to do.
Yeah.
It felt like it's been a while. Like he's always just sort of been, well, he's the one that gets abducted, and then he's the one that just has to look pained and whatever. Like I just, he's kind of been a afterthought, it has felt like, compared to the other guys.
Yeah.
In their little group, but he at least had a little bit more to do this time.
He did. And, it was, again, super interesting to, see that kind of storyline start to play out. And it'll be interesting to see where they go with it in season 5. Right.
Yeah.
And I agree. It was nice to see them give Will something to do other than have a really horrifically bad haircut. Everybody else gets like great hair except Will.
Well, I mean, it was the 80s. We all had that one friend who had that haircut. And if you look around the circle and nobody else does, right. Guess what?
You're that guy.
I was that guy.
I probably was at some point, for sure. I will say one of my favorite, like my second favorite new addition to the whole thing was the pizza delivery stoner guy.
Oh my gosh, he was hilarious.
He was hilarious in that every now and then he saw something nobody else saw.
Right.
He'd be like, hey guys, like, and just had that like one brilliant moment that catches everybody off guard. And then he's right back to being super stoner.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Super spaced out stoner guy.
That was terrific. He was really funny. Good for comedy relief. And
he was good for comedy relief. The Matthew Bodine, Millie Bobby Brown, like father-daughter storyline was interesting.
Yeah, I felt like that was one of the ones that got a little ponderous and kind of not always clear what's happening with whom when.
Yeah, I thought the way that it wrapped was pretty solid.
Yeah, pretty unambiguous.
Right? He was like, calling her daughter the whole time. She calls him Papa.
Yeah.
And you start to think maybe there's love there, and he's trying to get her to say that she understands what he was trying to do as he's dying. Yeah. And she lets go of his hand and just says goodbye.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, you don't understand. You think what he did, and rightfully so, was horrific.
Because it was.
Like, he took children and experimented on them. Yeah, what you did was horrible.
Right.
No wonder you wound up with a Vecna.
Yeah, and your dying act to free her from her shackles or whatever is fine, but it doesn't undo all the horror that you created.
No, like, to be like, sorry, I held you captive for like, I don't know, 13, 14 years in a basement and tortured you and forced you to do all these things and whatever, until you felt you had to escape. And she was like, I don't know how old, but she wasn't 13
11 or something.
Yeah, something like
10,
that.
Something like that.
10, yeah. But sorry I did all that to you, but you get it, right? We're cool.
We're good now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Fist bump? No. All right. Never mind.
Okay, here's an example of something that they started off down a path with Paul Reiser's character, Dr. Whoever.
Yep.
Made a big deal about the helicopter coming to his house and threatening him, and that leads him to contact Ellen, all of that, and puts all of that in motion. And then he ends up in the desert with Modine's character, with Papa, and then he kind of ceases to matter.
I don't know that he ceases to matter.
I mean, he's trying to be the voice of caution and reason and compassion.
100%. And
then he gets locked up, and then I don't know what happens to him.
I can't remember. I think they haul him off or something like that. Honestly, I don't remember. I have to go back and look, but I don't think he was, I don't think he ceased to matter. I think he was always the voice of, like, he was always Eleven's advocate, right? You can't keep doing this to her. Like you can't,
Yeah.
you promised her you weren't going to do this.
Yeah.
Right. Calling Papa out over and over and over again until they finally, to your point, lock him in a room. Right.
Yeah.
Where the military ends up finding him and all that jazz.
Yeah.
And maybe he dies. I don't remember, but
I don't think it's clear.
Yeah, it's pretty ambiguous. But I think that he actually was still a fairly important role in being the advocate for 11, right?
All right. Fair. That's fair.
Let's talk about the big bad.
Okay.
Let's talk about Vecna.
I found the whole Vecna story. Well, I mean, the connection to one was kind of cool. Was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that was cool.
I'm a little confused about Vecna's relationship to the Mind Flayer and to the, what are the little dog-like things?
Right. So
Gormagons? What the hell? What I always want to say Gorgons. Demogorgons. There you go. But Gorgon's the Medusa-like character. Demogorgons. Yeah. And I know whenever I say this, Josh, my son, will always be like, Dad, they told you what the relationship is. The Demogorgons are foot soldiers, and Vecna's the 4-star general in Mind Flayer's army. I'm like, okay, but it wasn't really presented that way. What they showed me, what I thought I saw, was more like Vecna kind of shaping the Mind Flayer. And so in that case, is actually Vecna the big bad here. And I didn't totally understand all the ways they tried to retcon Vecna into like it's been him all along. Like, I don't know.
But so at the same time, like it doesn't appear that it's been him all along, right? So 11 cracked, reality essentially when she got rid of him and shoved him into the Upside Down.
Yeah.
Where he was able to establish himself and, become and evolve and become something more.
Yeah.
But to Josh's point, they talked about he's like the 4-star general in the army. Yeah. So he's not the overall leader. He's trying to set up everything so that the Upside Down can come into
and overtake the real world.
For whoever the biggest bad of them all in the Upside Down is, which I assume is probably that one big mass of blackness that we always see, of darkness.
Yeah.
And I assume that that's what that's about, right? Is that he was given dominion to be able to run all of those lower level things and draw power to crack reality again and bring the Upside Down into the normal reality. That's my assumption based on like what I took away from watching it.
Yeah. So did you understand it to be that Vecna's been kind of controlling the Demogorgons or sending the Demogorgons from the first couple of seasons? Has he been behind that? Or was he, and why was he killed his family and then all of a sudden he decided to start killing again in the
no, because remember, so
what did I miss there?
You got a couple questions, right? The first one, yes, because if you remember, when 11 shoves him into the Upside Down, she had not escaped from the institution yet. Right. So yes, he ends up being who sends things from the Upside Down to try and draw power to be able to bring the Upside Down into reality. That's his role. Why he stopped, right? We saw that because they put essentially an inhibitor chip in him that prevented him from being able to use his powers. And then he befriends 11, right? And they go to escape together, and he tells 11, they have a way to track me, right? You have to take this out of me. He doesn't tell her that he has powers. He doesn't tell her any of that. He just says there's a thing inside of me that they use to track me. She pulls it out, and then all of a sudden it turns out that was keeping him from being able to use his powers. So he didn't kill for a long time because he couldn't. He didn't have his powers. They put the little in him.
So her removing that chip thing wasn't a memory that had happened previously. That was like it happened in the real time of the show, just like in a mind reality something.
No,
that wasn't a memory. Because here's the thing.
It was a memory.
Okay, but then if she removed his chip before she shoved him into the upside down, why was he unable to kill while he was in the upside down?
What do you mean?
Well, there was this time. There was the whole time where he wasn't killing. Why did he just all of a sudden decide to start killing again?
Well, he did decide to start killing in the hospital, like lab that they were all in. He killed everybody. Basically.
Yeah, right.
Right. And then she shoved him into the upside down where he was burnt on entry, apparently. And you know, and he even talks about the fact that he started to evolve. He started to develop into something more. Yeah. So he became patient until it was time to enact whatever the plan is with the big bad in the upside down, right? And then started doing the thing.
Okay. That makes more sense than all like 700 hours of this season.
Well, and that's, you know, you got to look at it in terms of like, if we're thinking about serial killers, right? This is a horrible thing to think about, but if you're thinking about serial killers, there are a number of serial killers in history who kill and then go dormant. That's true. And then they pop up again, right? Yeah. Because of whatever reason. So think of him in that regard, right? He was a psychopath and a killer. He killed, right? Was pushed into the upside down, went into a whole new place, and he doesn't really know how to get out of yet. Yeah. And so he essentially goes dormant while he develops into something else and then goes active again, right? That's fair. All right. Yeah, that makes way more sense than everything I watched. Thank you. Good, because that hurt my brain. Right. Okay, so I would be remiss. So my daughter loves this show. Oh, nice. And could not wait to watch it, and has watched it with multiple friends and doing stuff. She was so angry at what they did to Max at the end. Oh yeah. And her question, and I will pose it to you. So if you're going to make Max blind and deaf and immobile and brain dead, essentially, why is she still on this show? Why not just kill her? If you're going to leave her incapable of doing anything, why is she still in this show? Well, one, we don't know what exactly the result is of this, right? It's a supernatural event. Yeah. Right. You don't know that Max is crippled for life. You don't know that, you know, she's deaf and blind for the rest of her life. You don't know that she's going to be, you know, in a coma. Like, we don't know. Yeah. Right. And clearly Max's role within the show isn't done. We've got another season coming. They just posted a picture of the whiteboard from the season 5 writers room for Stranger Things today, on Instagram. So Max's role isn't done, and she's, you know, there's something that's going to happen where she's going to be a pivotal part of that. Yeah. I have to assume at some point Elle's going to find a way to rescue her mind. Like Elle will continue to go in there and find whatever piece of her mind still exists somewhere in that dark corner. Elle's going to find her and help her come back to herself, I assume. Yeah, my assumption is that she's stuck. Her mind is stuck in the upside down somewhere. Right? Or somewhere in between the upside down and reality. Like, something's happening there, and that's going to be an important part. I loved how strong Max was. Yes, absolutely. As a character. Like, was she afraid? Yes. Right? Did she not want to die? No. And man, when she started crying and saying like she didn't want to die, like she wasn't ready to go. Right. Right. exactly what you expect from a kid, even though, right, they've been strong and they've been placed in this position to
Right.
be
And
strong.
she's carrying so much guilt and shame.
Tons, right? Tons over her stepbrother.
Yeah.
Right. So and we saw that in the Upside Down, right? Her stepbrother and some other folks that wound up there. Or at least like some vestige of them wound up there, some memory, whether that was Vecna controlling them and making them appear, still not super clear.
Right.
So that leads me to believe that somewhere in there, I think we're gonna see Max, right?
Yeah.
And eventually she'll make her way back into her body. I can see I can see where her anger stems from, right? But if this was the very last season,
yeah, or if that was how it ended with her,
right?
Yeah,
but it's not, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
Not the
I
end
agree.
Of her
I
story.
guess Jacqueline saw a post somewhere from the Duffer Brothers that said something about, oh no, she's blind and deaf and all the things. And I'm like, well, okay, kiddo, but I think they're just putting out a rabbit trail right there a little bit. They're that's a little bit of a deception or a like sleight of hand kind of thing. They want you to think that that's where she is. Huh?
Yeah. A little subterfuge.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
Yeah. That's my big word for the day.
Thank you.
So the last thing before, to get into, at least on my end, before I think probably wrap up.
Yeah.
Unless you got anything else major, is I'd like to see Steve and what's the girl's name? That was his girlfriend in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Nancy.
Thank you. I always refer to her as Nancy Drew in my head, so that makes sense.
Well, they do that in the show, right? Don't they call her Nancy Drew in that?
Yeah, they call her Nancy Drew in the show. I personally would like to see Steve and Nancy back together.
Their chemistry is tremendous.
Right?
Way better. Their chemistry is way better than Nancy and Jonathan.
Yeah. Nancy and Jonathan were cool for a couple seasons and they were nice, but they've clearly evolved in very different directions and going down very different paths. Meanwhile, Steve and Nancy, like they just, even though Nancy like was a little taken aback, you could tell by Steve's profession of like love and everything else.
Yeah.
And she wasn't quite ready for that.
Which makes sense given what her character has done. Like she shouldn't have just been like, oh yeah. Me too.
Right, exactly. And I'm glad they didn't do that. That would have been cheap. That would have been making it a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that their chemistry is stronger.
Right. And I do, there's some real world application or reflection there in that most of us, the people we fell in love with at 16, 17 is not our lifelong partner.
Correct.
Obviously, there are from some folks for whom that is true, but most of the people I know, that's not how it worked out. So it would make sense for Nancy and Jonathan to grow apart.
Yeah, I agree. And it, events like this create strong connections between people.
Sure.
Like stressful, catastrophic style events. I think it's why you see such strong brotherhoods coming out of folks who have served in the military together.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're thrown into what feels like impossible situations and you come out of it and you have that shared trauma with somebody else. So you're not, you don't always feel like you're carrying the full load. And, everybody has their reaction differently and whatnot. But, I think it's why you see those brotherhoods and sisterhoods from things like military and whatnot, right? Sports teams too, right? Sports teams that have had to fight through horrible seasons and, everything else. Like if they persevere, they're a closer knit unit, right? If they completely fall apart and everything goes down the toilet and they end up at 0-16, then you probably don't have that camaraderie. You probably don't have that bond that brings them together next year with a desire to do better, right? You
Yeah.
probably have a every man for himself, I'm going to get mine, I'm getting out of here kind of mentality. But when you have a team that, you know, fights through some adversity and then comes out the other side with an ability to focus on some wins, right? Then it's a different ballgame, so to speak. Any given Sunday. Great movie.
Yeah. So are we giving this the rating?
Oh yeah, we got to give it a rating. Dave?
I think this season had its flaws, as I've discussed, and it was not perfect, but I still got to give it an overwhelmed. It was enjoyable. The characters have evolved. It's great to look at. Soundtrack's fantastic, obviously. Yeah. So I'm gonna. It's not perfect, but it's definitely an overwhelmed for me.
Yeah, I am. So I disagree with you on it. I find very few flaws in this season.
Yeah.
I thought it was well written. The storylines were so good in how they crossed back and forth together to weave like a really large picture that touched multiple corners of the planet, and managed to interconnect everybody. I thought the performances by everybody were just phenomenal. You know, and we had Eddie Munson, and we lost Eddie Munson.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only detractor for me, is that we lost Eddie Munson too soon. And but everything else and everyone else, just, you know, amazing, just absolutely amazing. I loved it. And so for me, it's clearly an overwhelmed, just great season from them, and I'm really looking forward to season 5.
Yeah. Oh, I am too, for sure.
Yeah,
it'll be great. In fact, so, we finished watching the final one, and I was like, okay, that's the end of the first part. There's another part coming out, right? And Josh is like, are you dumb? No, that's the end of this season, dummy. Like, oh yeah, I wanted more right now.
Right. They split it into two.
Yeah,
like you had
right,
a whole bunch of
but
long episodes.
Just the way I watched it, I just didn't really connect with. Oh, I would be remiss. One last thing. Has there ever been a more subtle on-screen death than Jason's?
Oh yeah.
Of a kind of major character?
Yeah.
Like that split opens in the world, in the earth, and it just sort of disintegrated him. Like, because he was caught in the midst of it.
Yep, just kind of gone.
Yeah.
Just kind of gone.
Yeah.
I don't feel the loss of Jason as much as
I mean, no, I don't either. I just thought it was interesting that was a pretty almost off-screen way to end that story.
Almost, yeah, very much so.
All right, well, true believers, let us know what you think. What'd you think of this episode, and what did you think? More importantly, what did you think of Stranger Things season 4? Let us know. Send us an email, so leave us a note on Instagram or wherever. Yeah. We'd love to interact with you. Maybe you will be the next fan fiction.
Maybe.
And wouldn't that make your day complete?
It would make my day complete.
It would make mine complete as well.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us on this journey. Until next time, true believers. Bye.
Bye, guys.